Hi, I'm Brian Parks from Belimo. Today, I've got Chris Sheehan from Technical Support. He's going to show you some tips and tricks on using the Belimo ZTH and how to use it with some various actuators. Chris?
Thank you, Brian. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to connect and wire the ZTH US handheld tool. The ZTH can be used with MFT, EP, EP2, and EV actuators that have service ports. It cannot be used with -3, -SR, or on-off actuators. If one of these actuators is connected to the ZTH, you'll get a message that says, "Startup, no device found." Let's look at what comes in the box with the ZTH US. In the box will be a ZTH US handheld tool, a USB 2 cable, which is used to connect the ZTH to a laptop computer, a ZK2-Gen cable, a ZK1-Gen cable, and a ZK6-Gen cable. The ZK2-Gen is used for spring return actuators. ZK1 is used for non-spring and electronic failsafe actuators, and the ZK6-Gen is used for SY actuators. Also in the box is an instruction sheet. The first product that I'm going to show you how to wire up to the ZTH is going to be a non-spring return actuator, and we're going to use the ZK1-Gen cable. During this demonstration, I'm going to use a PS100 power supply because the actuator will need to have power applied to it for the ZTH to work properly. To insert the ZTH into the actuator, there is a service port on these actuators, and on the ZK1-Gen, there is an arrow. You're going to take that arrow and point it to the nub inside of the actuator. You're going to place it in, and then we're going to turn this probably about 1/8 of a turn, and then you'll see the ZTH will show startup and boxes will advance across, and then it will recognize the actuator, which in this case is an LMB24-MFT. Now we're going to walk through all of the screens and what can be changed on the actuator. So if we use the arrow down button here, we are going to be able to, first thing down, it says min. So by using this, you're going to be able to adjust the minimum position of the actuator. So if we have the min, we press OK. There will be an arrow next to the 0, and then we can use the up and down buttons to adjust what the minimum position will be. Next, we'll press escape. The next item will be the mid position if you need to set, say, a mid position of the actuator. Then we have the maximum position. These are used if you wanted to limit the travel of the actuator on the damper, or limit how far open it's going to open as far as if it were attached to a valve. The next item that we see is the runtime of the actuator. For this actuator, it's set for 50 seconds. The standard runtime for damper actuators is 150 seconds. For valves, it's usually 90 seconds, but that can be adjusted here. Again, we're going to press OK. We see the arrow, and then we can use the up and down arrows to adjust it. If you hold it down, it will move quickly. As you can see, the maximum runtime for this actuator is 452 seconds. Next, we have the control signal. Standard default control signal for the actuators is going to be 2 to 10, but we can adjust this to DC variable. We use this for control signals that are out of the normal, such as 6 to 9 volts DC, or in applications where we're doing 1/3, 2/3 applications with steam valves, where you would do one is, say, 2 volts to 4 volts, and the second one would be 5 volts to 10 volts per se. Next, The other options are it's 2 to 10. Escape. So it's going to be 2 to 10, DC variable, open closed, floating point, PWM. There are several PWM signals that are available with this. Actually, there's 3 that are available with this, and then there are more available if the ZTH is hooked up to PC Tool software. That will be covered in a later video. And last but not least, we have DC 0.5 to 10 DC control signal. The next item that we can change with the ZTH will be the feedback signal. The options for feedback are 2 to 10 or 0 to 10. Next item we see is actuator value. This can be used to override the position of the actuator. So we would say OK. That changes from auto to stop or open. And we can press the button and it will manually override the actuator to a certain position, and you see the value written on the display. And it'll stay where you leave it as long as the ZTH is connected. Once we press escape, the actuator will go back to where the normal signal was that it was receiving from the controller. The next item we see is MP address. This can be MP 1 through 6 or PP for peer-to-peer. After that, the next item we see is messages. Some examples of the messages that you might see is control range incomplete. That would mean that the actuator is not able to travel the correct distance from 0 to 100%. Something has happened to not allow it to travel properly. Maybe it will only get 80% open, so it's saying there's an issue here. You need to look at the damper or look at the valve if it's attached to a valve. These messages can be reset by use of our PC Tool software. They cannot be reset with just the ZTH alone. Next item is PICCV process. This is only for the PICCVs. We stopped selling the PICCVs several years ago, but we've left this feature still in the ZTH in case there's the need to program an actuator for one of these. If you need help with this application, contact tech support and we'll be more than happy to help you. And then again, we scroll all the way back. This is the beginning, which it now says LMB 24-MFT. That is the way the things are connected to the non-spring return actuator and the features that are available with the ZTH. The next actuator I'm going to show you how to connect to will be a spring return actuator. For this demonstration, I will use an AFB 24-MFT. These actuators do not have service ports on them, so we're going to use the ZK2-Gen cable. This cable has a phone jack on one end, and on the other end there are 3 wires. So we'll plug the phone jack into the MP port of the ZTH, and we're going to connect according to the label that's on the cable. The white wire for the cable is going to be connected to the black wire on the actuator. The blue wire is going to be connected to the red wire on the actuator. And then the turquoise wire is going to be connected to the orange or feedback wire on the actuator. Now for the LF actuators, they do not have an orange feedback wire, but there will be a wire that is labeled number 5. So you're going to use the number 5 feedback wire. Now when we power this up, the actuator should power up and then load up and show AFB 24-MFT. The ZK2-Gen wire can be used for any of the actuators. So if you don't have the other cable, the ZK1 wire with the round connector, this cable can be used with any of the actuators and connect in this way. As we see, AFB 24-MFT. Let's scroll through. We have the min position, as we showed with the non-spring return, mid, max, the runtime. Now the spring return actuators, because you're winding a spring, we are not able to get as fast a runtime as we can with the non-spring return actuators. But if we press OK here, we can press down, and 67 seconds is the fastest that we can get the AFB 24-MFT to run. Press escape. Control signal is going to be as we had with the LMB, the non-spring return actuators. We're going to have 2 to 10. Yeah. We're going to have 2 to 10. DC variable, open closed, floating point control, PWM, and 0.5 to 10 control signals. The feedback is going to be the same as we had with the non-spring, 2 to 10. DC variable or 0.5 to 10 control signals on the feedback. We have actuator value, so the position of the actuator. So if we press OK here, we can drive the actuator open or drive it closed, and the actuator will stay in that position until escape is hit on the ZTH. All right. The MP address. Messages for this actuator, there are no messages. PICCV process, and then we scroll back to the part number for the actuator, which is AFB 24-MFT. Now I want to show you something. For the ZTH, when you first plug it in, it's going to show you a firmware version. For this, it shows version 2.09. It's only on there for just a few seconds. You're going to want the firmware to be 2.9 or above to be able to connect to the newer actuators that we're selling lately. The current version of all the actuators. It is backwards compatible to anything that's previous, but it should be at least 2.9. If you need help with updating the software or the firmware on the ZTH, you can contact tech support. The firmware is available on our website. The last type of actuator I'm going to show you is our SY type actuator. For this actuator, we're going to use a different cable. This is the ZK6 cable, and this has 2 phone jacks on either end of the cable. You cannot use a standard phone wire for this, because what we've done is we've flipped the connections over as far as the connections on here. So it has to be the ZK6 cable that we sell. Where we're going to connect to on the SY actuators, there is a port here which is labeled service, and you're just going to plug the cable right into that. Once that is done, the only changes that can be made on the SY type actuators, we can change the control signal and the feedback signal. You cannot change percentage open of the actuator at all. It is set at what the values are when it leaves the factory. It cannot be changed with the ZTH or with PC Tool. All the only modifications that can be made on the ZTH is control signal and feedback signal. One change for the ZTH, as opposed to the rest of our actuators, these can be programmed for a 4 to 20 milliamp control signal. Our regular actuators are not capable of having that programming. So as you can see, the ZTH is a very handy tool and is a great addition to any technician's tool bag. Brian?
Hey Chris, thanks for that great video.
You're welcome.
If you have any questions, please call Belimo Technical Support at 1-800-543-9038, or you can also go to the Belimo website. Thanks for watching the video, and be sure to watch some additional videos on YouTube. Thanks.